Hey, everybody, I want to welcome you to Business Insights with Matt Milley. And I'm super excited this week because I actually have a celebrity here, someone who made an amazing movie off of a real true life event. And in Business Insight fashion, you are going to hear a story from a rescue to a restore, and now to a story of redemption, where someone who has gone through such trauma that normally would paralyze most folks, she's going to actually show and share with you exactly how you can overcome trauma in your life. And we're going to get to her story, but first, I'm going to go ahead here and cue my intro. Welcome to Business Insights with Matt Milley. I'm your host, Matt Milley, and in this podcast, we'll talk about the real, raw, uncut business success secrets you won't find anywhere else. Follow my journey from entry level to CEO. We discuss real actionable items you can plug into your business right away. To subscribe to our weekly top tips, you can go to www.mattpodcast.com and join our community of elite high-level performers. And if you're interested in our inside sales company, you can go to www.appointmentstoday.com to jump on a free strategy call. And now, stay tuned for our podcast. All right, Gina, thank you so much for coming on here and being a guest. I'm really excited to talk with everybody and have you share a little bit about your story. And if you would tell everybody a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Hi, I'm Gina M. Garcia. I'm a filmmaker, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and a survivor of a childhood stranger abduction. So,
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a lot. I like the first part of my resume versus the last.
Well, I could only imagine. And it sounds, I think the last part probably really built you into the amazing person that you are today. And of course, showed you how you can go from such a traumatic event to being the person you are today. If you wouldn't mind sharing with everybody, what happened and tell everybody a little bit about the situation.
So it happened October 12th, 1981. It was Columbus Day. We were off from school, and my mom had a great idea as far as let's have a girls' day out. So it was me and my sister and my mom. We went to the mall. We saw a movie. And as a teenage sister, and I was 8, was like, hey, let's go hang out in the mall. And my mom was like, okay, I can pay a bill over at Sears. I had a book report to do on Saturn. So I was like, all right, let's go to the bookstore. And so I was in the bookstore. My sister was talking, I think from some friends from high school or something like that. And then I was just in the science section looking up books on Saturn. As simple as that. A man had come up to me. He said he could help me find some books. And my dad was like, hey, if you get a good grade, I'll get you a new bicycle kind of thing. So I wanted to do anything I could do to get a good grade,
Sure.
So he said he had some books and magazines in his car. It's not the story that you hear, like, man grabs a child and throws him over his shoulder and throws him into a van. I went willingly because I was an innocent little kid, and I believe someone that showed me a badge and said he was a security guard could help me. So he led me out the mall. I know we went through the Sears and Roebucks, and any time my mom possibly could have seen us, it was that close. So we went out of the back of the mall, got to his car. He never pulled out a book. He just pushed me into the car. He drove me to the back of the mall, where he parked in front of the Lionel Playworld, which was a toy store. In the 70s and 80s, it had a kangaroo as its mascot and a little Joey in the pouch. And that was a place, since my parents were divorced, weekend dad would always take me to Lionel Playworld. I would be able to get a little toy. So in the car, I was sexually assaulted at knifepoint. I learned how to disassociate because I looked at the 2 kangaroos on the sign, and I just kept on singing the commercials in my head, as far as to not be present on the horrible and horrific acts that was happening to me. I had a knife to my throat. I was 8 years old. after he assaulted me, he attempted to leave the mall. By the grace of, or just a miracle, somebody had been driving and ran a stop sign. And because they ran a stop sign, they went right in front of the car. He had to screech to a halt, and I jumped out of the car. Those kangaroos that I was singing that song basically motivated me to jump. That's what kangaroos do. They jump and they hop. So I hopped out of the car. I ran back into the mall half naked and found my sister.
Wow. That's crazy. And you made a movie on it, which, I mean, cannot be easy to do. How long did it take you to make the film?
It took a long time. I wrote the script in 2008, and I wanted to, tell my story. I wanted to produce it. I wanted, as a business owner, and I wanted to, produce my own film. So I decided to go to film school at 36. I went to the Philippines to go to film school. Also to understand my mother's heritage and things like that, and her strength is on who she is. So went to film school in 2008, 2009. I moved out to Los Angeles. I worked on quite a few like little sets and things like that as production assistant, became associate producer on some projects, and had the chance meeting Patty Jenkins, the director of Monster, who also did Wonder Woman as well as the Wonder Woman, the different Wonder Womans that are currently out. And I had asked her, being a producer, I'm like, hey, can you direct my movie? And she told me no. I hurt my feelings because I love your story. And she said, you need to tell your story. And my response to her was, well, I'm not a director. She's like, well, when you're done, you will be. And so she ended up mentoring the project and helped me with a script and, first day on sets and dealing with the cast and crew and whatnot. And so we filmed in 2012, part of it in Orlando, Florida, and then some of it in 2012 in Los Angeles. We shot a little in 2013. And so we had a completed film by 2014. We screened it at a few festivals. But in the editing process, I felt the story I was telling wasn't mine. It came across very Hollywood. There was a love story in there where there wasn't a love story that happened while this was going on. And I pretty much shelved the film. I wasn't comfortable with what was being released. I felt like a victim in it. And then with that, I shelved it till 2020 with COVID. I got COVID for Christmas. Permanent employee. It was a nice little gift. And I sat there and I was like, if I died, man, it would really suck that I spent all this time to make this film and no one knew my story. Untold would be always untold. So I kind of set out on a mission. I was like, I need to get this out there. And I was talking with my brother, who's also an entrepreneur and real estate investor. And he's like, well, when you originally edited the film, you were still a victim. And that's what comes out in the film, and which was brutal. He put this mirror up to my face and I wasn't comfortable with the mirror that I was looking into. Because if you want the world to see you differently, you have to cut it through a different lens. And that lens is the person that you are today. So I went in, I re-edited the film, new music, new direction, new ending, and pretty much told a story that is my story. And the original version of the film was called Untold, and the new version is Untold, This Is My Story, because it truly it depicts me on where I am today and the journey that I went on in the order that it actually happened versus the influence that I had from other people on how my story should be told. So in defining the new title, I felt the only proper title I could go with is Untold, This Is My Story.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, this gentleman that, and I don't know if you touched on this, but this gentleman that did this, what was his name?
The person that, it was only confirmed in September of this past year after the movie was having its world premiere that it was Otis Toole. It's the same person that took Adam Walsh and murdered Adam Walsh. He's a convicted serial killer. He was convicted for murdering 6 people. He confessed to murdering 108. And I'm the kid that came home.
Wow. Talk about divine intervention. Talk about, that's just, that truly is amazing, for someone to be able to talk about that, to get out. And in a lot of cases, something like that would completely wreck someone for the rest of their lives. How are you able to take what happened to you and use that as a, I don't know, how are you able to use that? That's probably the best question to ask.
Well, I'm not saying my life is perfect, by no means. And I had my trials and tribulations, like anybody that goes through some form of trauma. Statistically, it's you dive into drugs, there's drinking, alcohol, suicide, teen pregnancies. There's all these horrible things that people dive into that suffer from trauma. And then there's I call it the Oprah. Then there's the Oprahs and the Ellens, and they mask things by overachieving. And I did that approach because I didn't want to be seen as something dirty, that I wasn't successful, that the person that took me won. Mm-hmm. And so I, in 6th grade, I was student council president. I was in student council most of my childhood. I played various sports. I played volleyball and basketball. I played softball in college. I went into the military. I graduated top of my class. All these things that were masking the hurt little kid, because one of the things that happens is when you don't process things as a child, you have arrested development. And so what I was realizing is, as I was achieving in some aspects of my life, I was failing in others. And that was my relationships with people and who I was either dating and my family and things like that. So a hate crime happened at my business. From some employees that were stealing from me. They retaliated by doing some ugly, nasty things. They vandalized my business, my car, my house, that kind of stuff. And it ended up triggering a lot of the memories of what happened to me as a child. Most of it, I would say it was somewhat repressed. I always knew I was abducted, but what actually happened in the car as far as the assault and rape is something that I rather think of kangaroos than actually the horrific stuff that happened in the car. Sure. So all that started coming back like a tidal wave. I felt like I was drowning. It's kind of like, when you're, I grew up in Florida. You spend a lot of time at the beach, and when a wave just takes you out and you feel like you're like in a washing machine and all you want to do is try to get to the surface. That's what PTSD felt for me. All I wanted to do was get to the surface and breathe. And from that point on, I realized I needed help. I went to the VA in Orlando, Florida, which an amazing group of women veterans, and my therapist. It was a PTSD group, and they also put a mirror to my face and said, "Hey, stop telling the world you're okay. You tell the story of what happened to you, and then you're smiling. No part of what happened to you is okay, but when you're trying so hard to be something that you don't want the world to see, you just smile." And let's face it, that was nothing to smile about. So, they taught me the ability to be transparent, to be vulnerable, to open up, to be honest with myself that what had happened to me wasn't my fault. That the only person to blame, yes, my sister was watching me. Yes, my mom went to go pay a bill. My dad, why wasn't he there? My brother, and I could have blamed so many people. The only person to blame in this story is Otis Toole. He was the abductor. He was the rapist. He's the serial killer. And I stopped blaming myself.
It's amazing. So is this gentleman still alive?
He died in 1996 in prison.
Okay. That's just horrific, and for so many people that would just absolutely cripple them. And there's something that we talked about before. What is the manifesting muscle? Tell me a little bit about that.
So at the earliest age, my dad instilled in me this simple little thing. Every little kid gets asked, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And it could be a newscaster, it could be a movie star, it could be an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor, all those things. He would just say, "Tell people you want to be awesome." And
I like
with
that.
that, it was the one step further was it's believing in yourself. So when you flex your manifesting muscle, it's believing that you can. And I think that's the one thing that people forget or don't realize, even when they've dealt with trauma, is you still can. You still, the person that assaults you, the person that rapes you, the person that does these horrible things, they don't own you anymore. And that's the manifesting. The manifesting muscle is just you flex it and you show them that you have something, that you could believe in yourself and you could take back your life.
I love that. That is so powerful because so many people are always asking, why me? And we run these thought patterns, we run these talk tracks in our mind. And you're right, it's easy to point the finger of blame on someone. And, it's easy to say, oh, it's these people's faults, and then of course you hold these grudges against members of your family, or you blame yourself and you're thinking, well, what should I have done differently? And there's so many things that you could just go on and let it cripple you, let it stop your progress. And it's amazing what you've been able to accomplish. And now, so you're a real estate investor or developer, or what do you do now?
I flip houses. I do both small and large projects. I mainly focus on properties on the water. Who doesn't want to live on the water?
Hey.
So I moved from the Orlando area over to the Tampa area, and so I do Gulf front properties, that kind of thing. And then I also have a business called Trikaroo. I make small footprint electric vehicles. Trikaroo, as in a tricycle and a kangaroo. So they're pretty much a cross between a golf cart, a mobility scooter, and a bicycle. They're 2-passenger electric vehicles, kind of like a golf cart alternative. So I do that, and also, I made a movie. So the interesting part with Trikaroo, and I worked with a branding specialist, and I wanted to rewrite my history because my history of kangaroo was this violent crime, and now my mascot is a kangaroo. So I took ownership of that.
That is so powerful because I didn't even want to ask you what are your associations with a kangaroo, because I could only imagine that. I mean, you could have gone just such a different way and looking at that through such a different lens and a different vertical, thinking, the kangaroo is evil, when really in all actuality it was probably the only thing that allowed you to disassociate with what was actually really happening at that point in time.
Right. And that's the thing is we get to, as long as we're alive, we get to rewrite our history.
True.
We can define how it all looks like. My first initial premiere in 2014, we did the premiere in the exact mall, the exact date, and the exact time of my abduction. So I could sit there and say on October 12th of 2015 was the day of my first time I premiered my movie and told my story, versus on October 12th, 1981 was the day I was assaulted. And so I think it's important that you make those choices on how you want to look at the rest of your life. And that was kind of what kind of defined it for me, that I could rewrite even the movie that I made to tell it the way I want to tell it, because everybody in the world is going to define who you are, and it's up to you to make that choice to define who you are.
That's amazing. So the movie, for everyone that wants to see it, again, it's called
Untold. This is my story. It's available on Vudu, Amazon. It airs at will be on there at the end of the week. It's on Xbox, AT&T, Uverse. It's also on Google Play, YouTube Movies. And it'll be available in Barnes & Noble's, Best Buy, Walmart, and Amazon in May.
That's amazing. Are you excited to get your story out there?
I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to, hopefully, the name Untold. No story should be untold. And so the simple fact that it's getting out there and hopefully will create dialogue. I showed my family Implode, and what it looked like to deal with PTSD from this kind of trauma. And it's helped my family. We're rock solid as far as how we are with each other now. And I hope it will help other families and survivors to be able to have dialogue in regarding the hard topics.
That's amazing. And I mean, again, I can only imagine what someone in that position would be going through. And the fact that you've used that as you've extracted the emotion from the situation, which I'm sure was not easy, but you extracted the emotion from the situation. You took the lesson that you had learned from it and said, well, this is what I want to share with everybody, because so many people want to suppress or hold down, or, well, I'm going to pretend like it didn't happen. Like you said, where you have, either the Oprah or the Ellen approach, where you try to over-accomplish, over-succeed, and make it so that you minimize what happened so that you can fit in with the pack, so to speak, or with everybody. And I feel like all that does is, and again, by no means am I at all able to make these evaluations, because I don't have the background in this, and I've never dealt with something like it. But I can only imagine that what's going to end up happening eventually, it's going to resurface, and when it does resurface, it's going to be unbearable because you never dealt with it. And I mean, of course, you had to deal with that. What advice would you give to anybody that had to deal with something, a similar type of situation where they were abused, or, in any type of situation like that? What type of advice would you give them to, help them follow in your footsteps?
Use your voice, tell your story, don't bottle it up inside. No matter what, it will show up in some form of your current life. Whether it's in your relationship with your partner, whether it's with your friends, whether it's with your family, how you deal with people at work, I promise you, it will show up. And when it does, it doesn't look pretty. So in order to get through, to deal with it, you have to go through it. Find people around you that you can have conversations with. You can find people in churches, there's community centers, there's advocacy groups, there's lots of places that you can go for outreach, but don't hold it inside, because it will eat you up. It can destroy you. And living through that, you let the abusers win. And anyone that can survive any form of trauma, they're a winner by surviving. And that's the thing. You can truly get to the other side and thrive in your life. There's a quote in my movie that my brother says, he goes, "It's get out of the car already." I had to get out of the car of my abductor, and I carried him around like this passenger for decades. And he dictated so much of my life. And I didn't want that anymore for myself. So my advice to anyone is, get out of the car, get out of that room that you're abused in, get out of that house, get out of that situation in your mind, and you could go on and live a beautiful and amazing life.
That is awesome. Well, Gina, you are truly an inspiration, an amazing person. I read through your bio. I actually watched a clip of your movie. I am now going to look for your movie because I definitely want to. I definitely would love to watch it and have a little bit better of an understanding of everything that you've gone through. But is there anything else that you want to add in before we close things out?
Absolutely. If people wouldn't mind, if they're trying to find the film, yes, they can find it on, like I said, Vudu, Google Play, Amazon. If they want to reach out to me, my website is GinaMGarcia.com. If you want to look up anything in regarding the film, it's untold-movie.com. And I'm also starting a new podcast called The Manifesting Muscle. And that's manifestingmuscle.com. And you can also see it on Facebook.
So I added you, GinaMGarcia.com. You've got lots of different ones. What was the other one? Manifesting Muscle?
Uh-huh.
Is that a .com?
Yeah, that is a .com.
All right, let's see here. We'll add this on here as well. So then that way everybody can, oh, there we go. Look at that right across the bottom, manifestingmuscle.com. So guys, I mean, for everybody that wants to get a hold of Gina, I mean, this is truly a miraculous turn of events. It's a miraculous story. I mean, really, in my mind, it's a story about, really just fighting back and getting your life back and owning your choices and not allowing these, what you'd call demons of the past to pull you back and pull you down, because it's very easy to do that. It's easy to get in that blame game or of course, just implode. And it's amazing what you're doing. So Gina, I'm so thankful that I was able to have you on. This was really, really great. And for everybody that's watching, we'll be here same time, same channel next week. Gina, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Matt. It was wonderful being on your show.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Well, for everybody, let's all look at this as an opportunity to grow and an opportunity to realize that all the trauma and all the things that are in your past do not define you. You define you. So thank you again, Gina. And for everybody that's watching here, have a great week. We'll see you same time, same channel next week. Thanks, Gina.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.